Give everybody just a few minutes. Ronnie, you've officially been leveled up.
Glad to be here.
Alrighty, as people keep trickling in over the next minute or two, I would love to hear in the in the chat. I would love to hear how your team is using, how you guys are using SMS currently. Are you guys using it primarily for marketing, for sales, for post-sale, some combination therein? But I'd love to get a better understanding of the business units that are being represented on the call today. So how are you specifically using SMS for your team? If you haven't already, feel free to go ahead and post it in the chat below. If you guys are using it for a marketing use case, sales, post-sale, some combination. What is the #1 business unit you're using texting for right now? David, how are you using texting for your business?
From my job title that we'll get to in the next slide, I use it primarily for supporting customers in their efforts to work with Salesmsg.
Killer. All right, see we got one in the Q&A here.
CRM, it is even better.
Chat is disabled. Thank you for letting me know, Cody. Let me see if I can fix that for you. David, I'm not sure if you can attend it here. Perfect. Thanks for letting me know, guys. We'll try to see if we can dig in and make sure that the chat is enabled for this today's webinar. But feel free to go ahead and post it in the Q&A. Regardless, I'd love to get a better understanding of where we can focus our time together. So I'll plug it right along. If we haven't had the chance to connect yet, my name is Ben Francis. I head up customer success and support here at Salesmsg. On the call is one of my partners in crime, David, who is on our Tier 2 customer support team, one of our technical wizards here on the team directly. Also on the call, you'll see his little avatar hanging out over in the corner. We have Ronnie White, who's one of my customer success managers on the team here. He'll be primarily monitoring the chat. So if you have any specific questions, he'll make sure that myself or David answer them either live on the webinar or get you guys to the right place if it's going to require a bit longer of a conversation. I want to make sure you're well supported. So on today's webinar, we're specifically going to cover how do we best ensure that our messages are getting to their destination? How do we close the loop from the reporting perspective? What do we do if we find that those messages aren't actually reaching the customers we're intending to reach? So really the emphasis on today's webinar is to ensure that you have the highest possibility to generate positive ROI for your texting by using Salesmsg. We're going to give you a ton of different data points on this webinar. This will be recorded as well, so I'll email this along to all attendees after the fact. So No worry to feverishly scribble down notes. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to post them in the chat. As well, feel free to reach out to myself, my support team, David or Ronnie. We are all available. I'll make it really easy how to get a hold of me personally, ben@salesmsg.com. Cool. So, something I always love to lead off with on these best practice webinars, whether highly tactical or solely macro focused, is really our core ethos here at SalesMsg, because it informs everything we do and build here as a company. And we believe that conversations are good for business. We want to help your business facilitate those conversations. And we believe that messaging, SMS, WhatsApp, iMessage, omni-channel messaging as a strategy is the right way to facilitate conversations that are going to move the needle for your business. We believe that so much that we're building a whole platform and strategy around it. That's why we're all here. So, as a part of that vision for messaging and having conversations is good for business, we come to the conclusion over years of trial and error that implementing text messaging and messaging as a strategy across your customer lifecycle is going to be the right lever to pull to ensure that we have the best opportunity to attract customers, to engage them during the sales process, and to delight them on the post-sale experience. We call this end-to-end structure Textize Your Business, and it's a methodology that we deploy in a couple different ways here at SalesMsg. We also offer this as a service for customers to be able to go deep into your specific business use cases, do a scorecard assessment of where you guys are doing particularly well and where are some areas of growth for using messaging for your business across your customer lifecycle. So here are just a couple of the strategies that we dig into with customers during a Textize Your Business engagement. Looking at chatbots and text-to-join keywords, making it easy for customers to enter the door, engaging them and automating the engagement during the sales and marketing and sales qualification process, and then making sure that engagement and excitement with your business doesn't drop off, especially using the most valuable channel being texting in the post-sale experience with reviews, surveys, NPS, integrating with your support ecosystem. The list goes on and on and on. And so you'll find throughout this year, each of these buckets, attract, engage, delight, we're going to be releasing a set of features in each of these areas to ensure that we can offer the most cohesive experience for you to have an end-to-end customer strategy that involves SMS. So Textize is for SalesMsg what inbound marketing is for HubSpot. We are the architects of Textize Your Business. We trademark the term. And it's something that we believe really passionately about, and the thousands of customers we work with have seen significant results. Not a sales pitch, but just worth reiterating here exactly what we're getting into. So before I jump straight into the copy a little bit, I want to talk about the different statuses that an SMS can have, because beyond just I type it and I hit send and that's it. There are a couple different values that we can latch onto here, and each of them have a distinct purpose in our ecosystem. So David, rather than me just hogging the mic, I would love for you to help give us a better understanding of what these messages, the message statuses mean, and where we might see them in the application directly.
Yeah, of course. So right away, let's talk about those first two, because it kind of seems like they should be one and the same, the sent and delivered statuses. So a sent status is an indication that the SalesMsg network provider has successfully sent your text. So we have a receipt from our aggregator that says, hey, I took that data and I successfully pushed it to that phone number. But the delivered status is slightly different. And it's slightly different because we get to go one step deeper than that. The delivered status is actually your contacts carrier network has responded to our aggregator, who then responds to us and says, hey, not only did I send that message to the right phone number, but the network I sent it to told me it was successfully put on the device. While a sent message or a message that has a sent status isn't as concrete as the delivered status because like it's one step back of like what a delivered is. It's also not an indicator that your message didn't send or get delivered. It just means that that network didn't reply to our network about the completion of the message. And scheduled messages are sort of exactly what they sound like. It's a scheduled message. And in your sales message account, you have at least a couple ways where you can set a scheduled message. You can do it directly out of the message composer. And after I've written my message on the conversations page, instead of just hitting enter right away, I have a button in the toolbox that is like a small clock. And if I click that, I can set a time in the future where I want my message to be sent. Now keep in mind when you're setting that time, that's your time zone. So that's your browser's time zone. Not if I send a message to a contact in California, but I'm in New York and I schedule it for 9 a.m., my California contact's not going to get it at 9 a.m. Their time. They're going to get it at 9 a.m. my time. So that's just a little pro tip about the scheduled messages. But they are delineated on your account with like a whole unique color to the message body, where if we're just looking at this page here, you can see that it's grayed, it has the clock, and then it also says scheduled for time date. A received message is just an inbound message to you. So those received messages are always going to be from your contacts. Failed messages are going to be notated by that red circle with the exclamation point in it. And if you hover over it, not only is it going to give you that tooltip that says failed and then the time and date that it failed, but it should also provide you an error code. And later on in this presentation, we're going to dive a bit deeper into specific error codes, what they mean, and what we can do to mitigate and troubleshoot them.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, David, for kind of helping us understand the message statuses. And part of the reason we want to start with this is like in Sales Message, you're going to see icons all over the place associated with your messages, and it's helpful to know exactly what means what, to know whether or not there may be a problem. Anytime we don't get that successful kickback from the carrier that says, yep, I delivered that on that customer's phone, we're going to pull back. So we're going to show that little red dot, and we're going to show a code that indicates the reason why that is. And different reasons indicate different actions we need to take. So let's dive into that a little bit. So I don't know why the animation's here, but I'm just going to go and load all of them. So, and I promise we're not going to go word for word here. I want to make sure I respect everyone's time. But there are 3 distinct error codes that I want us to pay attention to that are highlighted in blue here. 30,005, 30,006, and 30,007. And these are universal codes that all of the carriers in North America are conditioned to send back when we are not able to successfully place a message on a customer's phone. The reason I call these 3 out as opposed to 3, 4, and 8 is, so we'll start at the bottom. 30,008, unknown error. The carrier essentially defined in typically this results in a timeout type request. This does not necessarily mean that the message was not successfully placed on your customer's phone. What we do in that case is reach out to myself and my team. We will open a conversation with our network partners to ensure we can close the loop there. But essentially, we tried to collect the information from the carriers, and for some reason, the carriers did not give that back to us. AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Bell Canada, all the others, for some reason, they just didn't give us the information we requested. But in terms of generating a positive ROI for your business and for texting, the ones that are the easiest to mitigate are 5, 6, and 7. 5 and 6 are low-hanging fruit. This speaks to a data issue, that the number that we collected from our customer is not a number that can receive your text message. And so therefore, continuing to send things outbound is not going to yield a positive return. The easiest solution here is to remove that customer from your list and to use another channel. Maybe call them, maybe use email as a strategy. Do something other than continuing to text them, because then your messages are never going to be received. It's a bummer, but it speaks to a data issue. We have a really easy way in our ecosystem to help identify those numbers, both proactively and reactively, to make sure that you know who on your list may not have the right number to receive your text. And this last one here, 30,007, this speaks to the carriers actively intervening and prohibiting the delivery of your message because your message potentially looks like spam. And this can happen for a variety of factors. Ultimately, like the way we can action this together is open a conversation with me and my team, and we will dig into it together. Sometimes it's as simple as using a bit.ly link, which is a big no-no because it's constantly flagged as spam. Sometimes there are specific words in the message itself that are triggering spam protocol and spam checks by the carriers. Not every business type is supported by the carriers. For like sports betting or entities operating in the vape or cannabis adjacent spaces are not supported for text messaging, and the carriers are actively using a variety of protocol to scan message copy to identify those messages and those senders that are maybe outside of the prohibited or outside of the accepted use cases. Long story short, if you're seeing 30,005 and 30,006, we have easy solution. If you're seeing 30,007, ask us what to do and we will have a recommendation for you. So, core theme here is if your message is not getting to its destination, you're not helpless. You have a resource in our team. Anything to add here, David?
Yeah, definitely. I would like to tack on just a little elaboration on something you already mentioned, which is if I'm seeing errors, especially one of these three, the 30,005, 6, or 7, it's fruitless to continue to attempt to message the contact. And in fact, not only is it not helpful, but it actually has a blowback detrimental effect to your own trust score with the carrier networks. If I attempt to continue to hammer messages that ultimately go nowhere for whatever reason, your percentage of successful messages to error messages is one of the key factors the carriers are going to look at when they determine if your account is, a legitimate organization or if, you're behaving in a way that is too similar to a spammer.
Yeah, that's a really great call out there. Just kind of put a pin on that. It's like the more I try to send texts to numbers that can't receive those texts, and the more I get opt-outs. Those are the two primary levers that the carriers are using to then go start to impose carrier filtering or even a compliance audit. The error codes that are associated with your message are going to speak to an action that we can take within Salesmsg to ensure that those messages actually get to your destination. So, how do I know that my message is being delivered? So beyond looking at an individual message itself, this is where our reporting comes in. And so beyond just talking about it, I actually want to launch into our application directly and show you where you can go pull some of this data directly. So, Salesmsg, we make it really easy from a couple different places to actively confirm are your messages being delivered to your destination. So let's show you. David, can you see my Salesmsg screen?
Sure can.
Awesome. Again, if anybody has any questions while I'm showcasing any of this, please feel free to post in the Q&A. Want to make sure that we can get you the answers you're looking for. So, on an individual message, if I'm looking at a threaded conversation with my contact, you'll see this double check mark here indicating a message delivered. As I scroll through, if I see any of those red dots, that will indicate a failed message. We're also gonna highlight that in red on the message timeline here. So you'll see, if I go to this one here, that indicates a failed message, as does this one. If I hover over it, guess what? This is a landline number. So like this phone number couldn't receive my text even if I tried. So this is going to be a contact I want to remove from my database, or at very least tag them to ensure that I stop texting them in the future. So that's one way. Another way is if I want to see this more in aggregate, I can go to the Analytics tab here and go to Messages. And so we're going to show you a variety of data points about your inbound and outbound text message volume. Number of inbound, number of outbound, but beneath that number of outbound, of the message I'm hitting send on, how many of them are getting to their destination? So delivered, that's success. That's what we want all of the time. Undelivered. This is going to speak to any of those error codes that we get that are not 30,007. We actually break out 30,007 to its own category as carrier violations here to make it really clear, do we have a data issue with undelivered or do we have a compliance issue with carrier violations? The other data point that's really important to note here is the opted out. The carriers are going to be looking for opted out and undelivered messages to define how much they impose carrier violations. There's a little nuance to it, which is part of the reason we wanted to have a webinar specifically about this, is when you're looking at your analytics in Salesmsg to say, am I successfully utilizing this as a channel? Can I convert on as many at-bats as possible? Let's make sure you don't have junk data, and let's make sure that the carriers don't think that your messages are potentially spam. So long as these two are as low as possible, ideally 0, then we know that we're getting as many chances to hit a home run as possible. I don't know, I've got baseball on the brain. Maybe it's because the Braves are active here in Atlanta today. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to keep an eye on the Q&A just in case you have any specific questions. So this is a second way that you can go measure from a macro lens. Are my messages actually reaching my customers? So when I'm looking, month over month, I sent thousands of messages. Do I see a majority of those are successfully delivered, or am I seeing a large percentage of those in the undelivered category? The last way I'll showcase to be able to visualize how many messages you're getting to your end destination is from the Contacts tab. So in here, you can actually go into the filter, and you can create a filter specifically for like message activity. So message status, total messages received, number type. Like we have a variety of different values in here as well. So I can come in here and say, you know what? I actually want to use message status, for example. If the message status is failed, show me all contacts with a failed message status. I've got 204 contacts in this database that have a failed status, undelivered or failed. Those speak to contacts that I'm not successfully utilizing, or I won't be able to successfully utilize in this channel because the number isn't going to work. So an easy way for me to then go apply a tag, for example, or delete those phone numbers. A couple of their options in here. Anything to add on this side, David?
No, I think it is really good to point out just how powerful the contacts page is as a contact management tool. And certainly one big call out, I guess, is that deleting a phone number does not automatically make it untextable. If you have that data in your CRM and that number comes back around again, we're going to try again. So another way to approach this would just be to apply opt-outs as you go through stuff and see that messages are failing. Make sure that you're opting those contacts out, because that will logically prevent us from ever trying to text them again, even if you try.
Yes. So like on the opt-out side, if you were hitting send on a message and a customer sends back stop or cancel or unsubscribe, we're automatically going to opt that contact out. And our database is going to prohibit any outbound message going out to that customer so long as we see that status. You have the ability to impose that if you want to actively prevent sales messages from going out from numbers that may not be able to receive them. If you want to then select and then go to, I can come in here and edit a contact directly and change their opt-in status, things like that. You have a variety of different options in here. I can even do this from the Conversations tab. So if I wanted to select a couple contacts in here, I could change their opt-in status and opt them out this way. A variety of different ways to do that directly from the Salesmsg platform. So something I wanted to key in on, because it's really important, is so what can I do to improve deliverability? So I've looked at the data. I see that not all of my messages are getting to their destination. What do I do? How can I ensure that I'm gonna get as many conversions as possible using this as a channel? And that's where, so one of the first things we want to highlight is ensuring that we have the right SMS compliance package. So as of last November, compliance for US-based businesses, Apologies to our Canadian counterparts, not quite there on the SMS compliance side yet. The carriers just haven't gotten together the way they have in the States. So big asterisks if you're in Canada. But here in the United States, all of the carriers got together early last year and said, how do we best mitigate people using spam for, like using text messaging for spam purposes, for phishing, for identity theft, for all of those awful texts that we've all received previously. And so what the conclusion was is that we need to standardize anyone who's using an application to text people, A2P is what it's called, beyond me taking my phone directly and hitting send on a message to another cell phone. Anything beyond that where I'm triggering it beyond a direct cell phone, that's A2P. They said, hey, you know what, we need to standardize this process and set one universal standard for compliance. And we call that 10DLC if you're using a local number. 10-digit long code is essentially what the acronym is. Essentially what you do, think of it like TSA pre-check for your text messaging, where you will elect to register your brand, say, hey, we're Salesmsg, here's what we do, here's our US tax ID, here's our website. And the carriers say, cool, we know who you are. And then you register your campaign to say, here's how I'm going to use SMS. I'm going to use it for my marketing purpose or for my webinar reminders, or I'm going to be using it for account updates or two-factor authentication, whatever the use case is, the campaign use case. You provide a little context around how customers enter your ecosystem, like a web form, or they inbound text or call, or a signed contract. And the carriers say, great, we know who Salesmsg is, we know the number you're going to be using and a sample of the text you're going to be sending. So now, moving forward, any traffic that comes from your Salesmsg account is going to go through a series of gates that have less scrutiny than the unverified pool that is more subject to carrier filtering, because the carriers don't know who these people are, what they're trying to use texting for. So you get through the same gates, but a lot faster with a lot less scrutiny overall and a lot more security that your messages are actually going to get to their destination. This was an elective previously, and as of November 3rd of last year, it's now become a requirement for any U.S. business sending out SMS traffic. By not registering for 10DLC, we run significant risk of having our messages being heavily filtered. And so we're essentially sending them into the void, where we're never going to get a chance to get a conversion from our customer because they never get to our customer. So the same thing exists if you want to use a toll-free number. It's a remarkably similar type of verification. It is built directly with our application directly. Excuse me. I think I'm done. So that is one of the easiest levers to pull to ensure that our messages get to our destination. That will take things out of that carrier violation bucket and move them back into the delivered bucket. Super simple. It's right within your account under the organization settings page. If you have any questions about how to register for compliance or which package is right for you, please reach out to us. We would love to have that conversation. So beyond registering for the right compliance package, what else do we do? I want to make sure that we have some easy recommendations here for you. So here are some things that we definitely want to do from a best practice perspective, especially on our first message. So it's not conversational, or for me to take anyone on this webinar and just send them a text with a crazy looking URL, whether shortened or long. That's not conversational. I'm not addressing you by name. You have no indication of who this number is, especially if it's not saved in your contacts. Your likelihood to report that message as spam is pretty high, especially given that iMessage now, when you delete a message, you have the ability to report it as junk, which is great. From an individual recipient perspective, I want the ability to say, hey, this is not content that I want to receive. So how do we set ourselves apart as businesses using text messaging as a channel from that general pool? And there are a couple easy things we do, especially on our first touch via text. So if you're focusing on the marketing or sales qualification side, this one's going to be for you. So there are 4 key elements we want to hit. We want to personalize that message with your customer's name. We want to to clearly articulate who is being represented in this message. Hey, David, it's Ben from Salesmsg. Awesome. I personalized it. I've introduced myself and the sender ID. Then from there, make sure that there's a tangible ask. There's something that you're asking the customer to do, and it makes sense. Rather than, hey, is this the right number for you? Or just sending out, thanks for filling out our form, and just a URL. Like there's no call to action there. There's no reason for me to want to respond at all. If anything, maybe I just opt out because it doesn't look like it's applicable for whatever I was just doing on your site. And then the last thing I want to hit is reply stop to opt out. We want to remind customers if they have a door to walk out if they want to, and we're not going to continue to harass them if they don't elect to receive content from us. They've already opted in, so like the likeliness of this is relatively low, but we want to ensure that we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's here. One of the next recommendations is Bitly. Please, please, please don't use it. Link shorteners are totally fine. We're seeing some prevailing trends around certain link shorteners perform better than others. More to come on that as we get more tangible info from the carriers directly. So whether you shorten your URL or not is completely up to you. But please, please, please don't use Bitly, because that one is the most commonly associated with spam and phishing, because it's an anonymous. Anyone can Google it, anyone can plug in a URL, and it can lead anywhere. So whether you use Google's or HubSpot has their own, I believe. Salesmsg, we actually have one built into your platform. So if you go to drop in a URL, you can click the little chain icon and convert down that URL automatically, saving you characters in your message.
Shout out to Ariana, our sole Q&A-er so far.
Yeah.
Asked the question, and just as Ben says, we've got the article linked up for our URL shortener there in the Q&A.
Yeah, great call up. Ariana, I'm glad you asked. So yeah, anytime you drop in a URL directly within Salesmsg, we can auto-convert that down to a shortened URL directly, saving you space in your message, because you recognize that space matters from a cost perspective and from a ability to use this short form, quick access channel most effectively. But we want to put a lot of context into what this URL is. What is the ask here? Hey, are you available to, thank you for filling out my form. Are you available for a quick call? Here's my calendar. Things like that. And that's fine. You could also use a text to join keyword and help route responses, and you can actually measure the success of that, which is pretty cool. But also, let's think about our data source for a second. As we saw on the bucket of sent messages, we had delivered, undelivered carrier violations. How many of those can we move from undelivered out of our ecosystem entirely by doing data validation? So beyond retroactively or reactively looking for error codes and then applying a different value or opting these people out or whatever, we have a proactive option built right within your Salesmsg account. So if you want, we can then go pull a list of all phone numbers associated to your Salesmsg account, and then go tell you if that number is legit directly from here. So you'll see here number status, valid, carrier name. We can start to publish this information directly within your Salesmsg account. So if I wanted to go grab a list of all of the phone types, for example, or the carrier types, number status, valid or invalid. So I've got 162 contacts in here that will never receive my message because they're junk numbers. In Salesmsg, we make it really easy to validate your data to ensure that we are going to get a positive ROI as much as possible. You can do this directly from the Contacts tab. If you want to select some contacts, hit Actions and validate phone numbers. We can validate them, pull out the phone type, the carrier name, and some other information. You can do it, so you can do this as a one-off batch, or you can set and forget. So every time a phone number is added to your database, we can scan that number, pull down the data, and the cool part is if you're using HubSpot, for example, we can then go push that phone type information back into HubSpot. So if you want to use an active list to say, hey, if the Salesmsg phone type is landline, move them out of this list so they never get enrolled in a workflow, or to add them to an email sequence or whatever the case is. So we can start to enrich this data in other places too, but allowing you to be able to save a good bit of money by not wasting credits on messages that can't receive, on numbers that can't receive them. In SalesMsg, it's 1 cent to validate a phone number. On our base plan, it's like 4 cents a credit. So is it worth the 75% there to ensure that we never waste a credit on a contact? Maybe. That's up to you. But we have an easy way for you to validate that data, either proactively or reactively. Anything to add there, David?
No, I was definitely going to point out that, if you're in this just from a cost analysis perspective, like Ben just pointed out, for a lot of users, it's 3 times cheaper to validate your number than it is to text it and find out that it can't take the text in the first place. And then just another call out that Ben had about, automating this in your own workflows. So if you're thinking, well, I'd like to do this, but I take every brand new contact and I immediately try to text them, so the flow just won't work for me. Well, it still can work, because in HubSpot we have actions to just create contacts without actually texting them. So you create your contact, give it a brief delay, allow that property to validate and update, and then right before you send your text message, a simple if-then branch in your HubSpot action can totally delineate if the number is valid or invalid.
Totally. So as a part of your automation strategy, new lead comes in, we create the record, we enrich that record, we check to make sure, can we text them? If so, send them a text. All of that you can just turn on in HubSpot and just let it run, which is awesome. Being able to take that and use that as a force multiplier for your business.
Mm-hmm.
So
I've had to use that specifically for customers who were in sore need of data validation because their errors were just too high. So that was a technique that we've helped others implement before. And if you're thinking you could use that, we can do it for you.
Love it. Well, again, if you have any questions feel free to post them in the Q&A, but I'll go ahead and kind of tee up a couple here. So what shouldn't I say in a text message, David? Are there any keywords I should just avoid saying entirely?
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of goes right to what we sort of call the SHAFT categories, right? So SHAFT is an acronym for, I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's like sex, hate, firearms, tobacco. It's kind of all the stuff that you would generally not want to send over text messages in the first place. But of course, if you really want an elaborated version of what is and isn't a supported category, we do have that information linked up on salesmsg.com and the footer of that webpage.
Yeah, great call out. Ariana had another question in the chat. We'll just go ahead and answer. So when we're scheduling text messages as a part of a campaign, the general rule of thumb is we want to keep it under that 160 character limit. What do we do? The short answer is you're not limited in SalesMsg in terms of only having messages that are 160 characters or less. It'd be a pretty nasty experience overall. So if your message is 161 characters or 180 or longer, not a big deal. All that means from a sales message perspective is that message is going to take more than 1 credit to send to your customer. So as I'm coming in here to type in a message, so we're going to show you this little credit counter and this little character counter in here. So as I come in, I'm just going to make this just a little bit smaller. As I come in here and type in a message, you'll see I have 142 characters left until I need more than 1 credit. So the longer I make my message, the more it's going to use those characters until I then cross the threshold to need a 2nd credit. So now, to send this single message on to a customer will require 2 credits to send. It'll still be delivered as 1 cohesive message, so your customer doesn't see any difference. It just pulls 2 credits from your balance, and now I have 136 characters until I need until I need an additional credit. Ariana, I hope that helps.
Yeah, and then we got another Q&A.
Yeah.
So how do carrier types and carrier names show up in the contacts?
For sure. So I'll showcase this in SalesMsg first, and then I'll pop to a HubSpot demo environment really quick. So in SalesMsg directly, we have a variety of different values um, in here for phone checker. Number status, carrier type, and carrier name. We can kind of see those here. So we're going to be able to populate number status is valid or invalid. Carrier name, if we're going to pull down that information, if we get a positive response there, and then carrier type. So we'll show you in Salesmsg, and you can create active filters for this if you want to. For like mobile, for specifically, like that's a category we have built out here, which essentially just means the carrier type is mobile. So like I know all of these contacts can receive my text, but then if you happen to be using HubSpot, I'm just going to take a guess. I can't remember if Windermere is off the top of my head, but if you're using HubSpot, we're also going to populate a property within HubSpot directly. It's going to be under a section called Phone Checker. Carrier name and phone type. We can pull those here. So then if you want to turn this on, turn on from the organization settings, we're going to go populate all of the phone type for all of your contacts in HubSpot automatically, which is great. So then if you wanted to use an if-then to say if the phone type is landline or null, then do not advance them, or the inverse, where like it only advance them if they're mobile or VoIP, for example. You can be able to use these properties in a workflow as well. Great question. Love it.
I would specifically say that if-then is probably best for, if you're going to try to add your contacts that opt into your HubSpot immediately to Salesmsg and text them ASAP. Otherwise, if there's any amount of time that you can wait, it might make more sense for you to build an active list like Ben originally suggested, and that active list just takes away everybody who doesn't have a textable phone number, and then just being on that list could also be your enrollment trigger. But that's less instant than doing it like add to contact and then do the validation, and as soon as it's ready, check and try to send the text.
Totally. Love the questions. So I wanted to call out this one because I've seen this one happen a few times. So this is an example of a message we would strongly avoid you sending. It's funny because this one gets a relatively high engagement, but this is one that is going to inflate your opt-out and your error rate pretty high pretty quickly, which is, hey, is this John? Like, if I'm receiving this message, no, this is not John, this is Ben. Also, who the heck are you? Also, how did you get this number? Also, like, it's typically very quickly, what we found in some customers' accounts, it leads to a string of 4-letter words that are not things like buy now. So please, please, please don't use a message like this. It lacks a sender ID, it lacks personalization. It has some, but personalization in context, especially from the sender perspective. Hey, this is Ben from Salesmsg. There's no opt-out verbiage. There's also no call to action here. Like, is it? It's a binary question, yes or no. So, please don't. I would love to know. It looks like we got one more question from Windermere in the chat. Looks like David's answering that one directly. I've got just a few more minutes. Happy to field anything else you got. But I would love to know, for everyone on the call, what's one new thing you learned in this webinar you're going to take back and try right away? I'd love to make sure that this was helpful for your team. I didn't just burn up your lunch hour, your afternoon. Want to make sure that we can provide as much value to you as possible so you can be successful at texting. What are you going to try? Feel free to post. Feel free to post in the Q&A.
While everyone is posting that and sort of reflecting, one other call about things that shouldn't be said, and it's not. This one's a little different because it's not necessarily what shouldn't be said, but kind of how you say it. So some other things that carriers don't like to see is they don't like to see overly used capitalization. So like, don't write your whole text in all caps. And it's kind of back to those other best practices about remove some of that vagueness and some of that ambiguity. So you just need to be clear about who you are, who you're representing, what you're asking for, and a clear way to opt out. So that's the kind of stuff that the carriers really love to see.
Awesome. Haven't seen any additional questions in the chat directly, but if you have any questions on how to best utilize Salesmsg for you and your team, easy solution. So you can either chat with us live on help.salesmsg.com directly from the help section within your account. You can click on that. You can chat with me. You can chat with David. You can chat with Alex and Ida and Ronnie and Jordan. Additionally, if you have questions about how should I use texting for my business, and you want to do a bit of a deep dive, reach out to me directly. ben@salesmsg.com. Rather than sharing like my direct phone number along, which I'm happy to share, sometimes it's easier it's just my name at salesmsg.com. Super simple. I will send a recording of this to all attendees, so feel free to keep keep an eye out for an email from me. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your week, and looking forward to chatting with you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Have a great day.
Thanks so much.